welcome back. You are watching Breakfast with Martin and Ellie. We're going to go through the papers now with the former advisor to Tony Blair, John McTiernan, and journalist and author Ella Whelan. Good morning to you both. Great to have you with us. Ella, we'll start with you. And it's the story that's giving us a giggle this morning. Chat Up Lines being given the elbow.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's a small survey by a dating site called Illicit Encounters, which I'm not sure many people are on, but anyway. But the results from this survey of how people are approaching dating, and in particular chat-up lines, found that only 1 in 5 18 to 24-year-olds have only ever chatted up someone in real life. So that most people, I think probably anecdotally, generally we can say we understand that this is true. There's a big move to dating sites, and there's a lot less of people meeting in bars, meeting in dances, wherever it used to happen. That's kind of a bit of a thing of the past. And it's interesting to think about what that does to the world of dating, because obviously if you've never had to actually go up to someone physically, see the look on their face, try and read the body language, and take that big risk of literally crossing the bar, then you're probably going to have a different, you are going to have a different experience than simply sending a message on a dating app online is in a way a very easy thing to do, because you don't have to be met with the consequences. And if you get rejected, well, it's just like a text. It doesn't feel the same.
It's interesting this, because I did a big men's mental health study into this, and relationships are like a key point of everyone's mental health. And if you have a good relationship, you tend to be happier. But it kept coming up from young lads that being rejected endlessly on the swipes was doing their heads in, because a small percentage of attractive men are getting all the attention, of course, and then that was hammering their self-confidence. And so when they go into those real-world environments, they were saying themselves, I feel helpless, I don't know what to do. And I think online dating has really changed that whole level of human interaction, I think possibly not for the better. What do you reckon, John? You're into online dating, chatting up?
I met my partner at university a very long time ago, so no, it's look, I think there's social media, smartphones, online dating, they're all part of the same thing, which is there are lower and lower barriers to communicating. I remember, when I was at school learning to dance and going to asking a girl for a dance was like a massive thing. And so some of the barriers have been lowered massively. You can just have I see my sons when they were at school had great relationships with girls. They just knew them well. They were friends. Sometimes they became girlfriends, but quite often they just stayed friends. And I think some of the relationships have been eased by technology, and some of them have been more complicated. I think that's just the way of the modern world. And it's this online dating app doesn't sound as if it's a really straightforward one, though, does it? Illicit?
No, the survey is weird. But I think the interesting thing is that, in a way, actually, the way we approach dating hasn't changed that much, which is, I think I can speak generally here, I think most women still, in heterosexual relationships anyway, most women still want to be the one that's approached. You still do want that, and certainly among my girlfriends anyway, you want that romance of, a little bit of a chase. You want there to be some kind of suspense to it, a bit of risk to it. But and that hasn't changed from, when people were crossing the dance floor, 30, 40 years ago. But the thing that's changed now is that we're also sending a message to young people, and in particular young men, that if you don't do it the right way, going along the right consent lines or whatever it is, then you are in danger of being described as a terrible person. And I just can't imagine the pressure that mounts on young people. I think actually in a way, I'm sort of torn. I'm a bit of a fan of dating apps, even though likewise I'm too old for them. I think I've met my husband before, and they were a thing. But I like the fact that you can have free and easy relationships. I also just want people to date, because I think there is a terrible. There's also sort of trends that have come up in other surveys that show that, in particular, Gen Z are sort of in a way anti-sex, anti-relationships, and. Please. And
loneliness is a terrible, terrible thing, and it's one of the things that's come up again and again, hasn't it? In looking back over the last 4 or 5 years, lots higher rates of loneliness, and some of it exacerbated by the pandemic in the long term.
Yeah. Okay, John, let's go to the Mail now, shall we? You've got a story about girl power.
Yeah, the girl power behind Starmer. It's a great piece by Dan Hodges, which is profiling a lot of the women behind and around Keir Starmer, some of whom you've heard of, like Angie Rayner and Rachel Reeves, very powerful women at the centre politically. Other people you've heard of we don't know much more about, like Sue Gray, Deborah Mattinson is pollster, and then some real stars, friends of mine, Jill Cuthbertson, who she's the gatekeeper. She's the one who lets you in or out the diary. She runs the office, the head of the office, the director of his office. And Steph Driver, who's the head of comms, and she's a really brilliant head of comms, and one of the reasons you know she is no one's ever heard of her. Because once you get known and named as a comms, you become the personality in politics, and actually you shouldn't be the personality, your person should be.
Isn't the key word here, though, John, the women behind Keir Starmer? Because Labour have never had a female leader.
Well, we've had two female leaders. We've had Margaret Beckett and Harriet Harman, because there's no such position in the Labour Party as acting leader. So we've had two female leaders.
Come on. There hasn't been an official Labour.
No, they were. When the leader was unavailable, resigns, the deputy leader becomes their leader. But look, Labour's got a great tradition of transforming its opponents. We've made the Tory party into a much more diverse, a much more gender-balanced party in the Parliament, in the House of Commons than it was before.
Are you gnashing your teeth there?
Well, it's just that I've never had any truck with discussions about the identity of politicians, whether it's kind of the Conservatives who keep saying we've got the most diverse cabinet, blah, 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 to this kind of, I mean, in the case of the Labour Party, slightly irritating discussion about women, seen as they have had such bad trouble in the recent past talking about women and women's issues in relation to the gender.
What is a woman?
Yeah, but the question I'd ask the Labour Party is, OK, if you've got all these ladies behind the scenes doing the job, where are your policies? Where are your policies on childcare? Where are your policies on abortion rights? Where, you know, all these things that affect women. And for both parties, as much as they bleat about diversity, and particularly when it comes to women, in actual fact, the women at home voters that we don't very often see any kind of bang for our buck in terms of the amount of skirt that's in Parliament.
Yeah, far from me to cut a woman short. I'm afraid we have to move on. We spoke so long about dating. We're going to do two stories, but you're back in the next hour. Ella Whelan and John McTurnan, thank you. Excellent news review. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both.